Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Lengling, your host. I am so happy that you're deciding to spend just a small part of your day with myself and my guest today. And I'm excited to share my guest with you today, Dave Rosenberg. He has been on a leadership journey that began in the Navy, where he learned the power of inspiring others under pressure. He combines his military discipline and martial arts training to help businesses build strong, accountable teams. And as a speaker, author, and podcast host, Dave is known for his expertise in radical accountability. Ooh, we're going to have to dig into that a little bit. His book, Locked On Leadership, provides a practical advice on creating a culture of consistency, courage, and caring. And we were talking off mic. He's a pet lover as well and coffee lover as well. So perfect guest for Let Fear Bounce. Welcome, Dave, to the show.
I'm so happy and excited to be here, Kim. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it. First of all, whenever I have a veteran on, I'm a veteran myself. So I always thank those who have served their country. So thank you so much, sir, for your service.
Well, it was my pleasure, and thank you for yours.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's see here. Where can we dive in? Okay, first off, I want to talk about the book, Locked On Leadership. It's an awesome title. I love that because that would catch my attention immediately. So, when did that book come about and why?
So it was published 2019, and it came about because I was trying to put together my thoughts on leadership. It's the leadership training in the military, which is quite abundant and quite theoretical. And this is the biggest challenge I find with leadership training in general. It's a lot of, 30,000 foot high level stuff, but no practical day to day. How do I execute it? And at this point in my career, when this came about, I was about 30 years in various leadership positions. I'd run 4 companies plus the time in the military. And I had actually created a system for myself. I didn't know it at the time, but when I sat down and thought about it, I had a system. And I wanted to set out to give people practical, tactical things they can do. The behaviors that need to be engaged in on a daily basis to truly inspire people to do better, to be true leaders. And so that was the impetus behind this, is putting it all down and sort of organizing it. And so that somebody, if they read the book, they wouldn't just go like, okay, this is great. I have a client who did this with another book I won't name. It's a great book on leadership, but they're like, how do I implement it? And then they hired me as a coach to help them implement this other book stuff, because all great leadership is the same. And so I wanted something that people can look at and go, okay, this is giving me the real steps. What do I really need to do?
So, you just took practical things that you learned on your journey. I've found that, at least for me, military really did set the tone for how I view a lot of things in life since then, and discipline being one of them, motivation to do a good job, another, things like that, that lead to leadership skills, whether you're in the military or not. How do you find that?
No, you're absolutely true. My first job out of the military was in sales and telecommunications. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't realize that the phone sitting on your desk was at an office was totally different than a phone hanging on the wall growing up at the house. That there's a computer behind that to route all that stuff, and there's features and all these things. So I sat down with the demo kit, and it was a miniature phone system we would bring out on site to show clients or potential clients how things worked. And I'm going through the book trying to figure out what problem each feature solved in
Mhm.
business. And I'm totally engrossed in my work. And all of a sudden, I become aware of people walking past my desk peripherally. And I look up, and it's everyone's leaving the office. And one of the customer service reps looks at me and goes, "Oh, are you working overtime?" I'm like, No, I just haven't finished what I started, what I set out to do today. I hadn't accomplished my mission, to put it in military terms.
Right.
And so what the military taught me first was mission accomplishment. It's not about punching a clock. It's getting the job done. And that's the precursor to everything you said. In order to do that, we need to be disciplined, right? That has to follow suit. And we have to be focused on the end result, not just marking time. So that does become the hallmark for all of leadership, because once you do that, then people look at you and go, "Oh, you're different," right?
Yeah. Yeah. Marking time. Yeah, that's always bothered me. 'Cause I'm a doer. I'm a doer. My mom's always saying, "You're just a go-getter, Kim." That's what she's always called me. And I've always been that way. And I'm assuming that you've probably been that way as well for, if not all of your life, the majority of your life.
Yeah, I never wanted to feel like I was taking. I always wanted to feel like there was some mutual exchange, right? When I was hired to do something, I'm getting paid to do something, and so I need to do that. Otherwise, I'm short shifting myself, and that's really the truth. You're not. We're not living up to our. And I don't feel good. I feel like a taker. That who wants to feel that way, right? So
No, I don't know. Yeah, I completely understand what you're talking about. I completely do. And there might be folks out there that don't, which I find interesting.
yeah,
I've met them. I've met the folks like that. I'm not being negative at all. But that's why I love having folks like you on the show because of what you do, as coaching and leadership training and things like that with businesses and different companies. You're an author. You're also a public speaker. Now, is that for corporations or is that something you do nationally? What type of stages do you speak on and why?
a great question. So I speak at conferences or for corporations. So typically it's associations or corporations. It's if somebody else wanted to hire me to bring me in for something that doesn't fit into one of those two buckets, I'm happy to have the conversation. And my
If
message is one that helps people elevate individuals, because leadership is about elevating individuals, about helping people become their highest and best self. It's not, it's peripherally about accomplishing the mission, but you do that by elevating the people, the team that's engaged in the mission. And so that they know what to do and they'll drive the success. Our job as leaders is to remove the barriers from that prevent that from them and let them just drive forward to success. And so I speak to organizations that need to hear or want to hear that message or feel like they want to get more out of their people. And how do they do that? And for me, it's about creating the right environment, creating the right culture
right.
where it's not about cracking the whip. And people hear accountability, radical accountability, you mentioned it. And the first thing people are going to mind is holding people accountable. And that is a tool and a critical, really important tool. But if that's the only tool in your accountability tool belt, you've missed the boat. It's not going to work.
And I think a lot of what you've been mentioning and talking about can benefit those not in a corporate setting, could benefit the mom homeschooling kids.
I get that a lot from attendees say, I can use this. And afterwards, when I get feedback, I've implemented this with my family, with my kids, right? Because accountability comes down to what I call the triad of accountability. These are the three elements that must be present. The first is mechanics, right? Mechanics are the processes, procedures, policies that are in place. In other words, setting people up for success, showing them how to do it, making sure they know how to do it, testing them to prove they know how to do it, right? Right. All of that, that's the mechanics, policies, processes, procedures, etc. The second is mindset. This goes to your point earlier, those people who don't mind being the takers. The reason they don't mind being a taker is they are so inward focused on themselves. I'm trying to get myself happy. If I only had more, if I only, if you ever watch a show, American Greed, where they talk about a lot of white collar scams, right? These are people who are so inwardly focused on themselves that I need more, I need more, I need more. They don't care who they run over and how they get it, seeking happiness. The challenge is they're looking in the wrong place. Happiness comes from serving others, not to the exclusion of yourself, right? Not serving to be and being a martyr, right? That doesn't work either, right?
Right.
It's a balance. But when we're in service of others, as well as maintaining our own healthy boundaries, that's where true fulfillment comes. So when we have a mindset in our organization of serving a greater need? Why does the business exist? And it's again talking typically business, or what's our job as parents, right? Which is to make healthy adults who are functioning and giving to society. And we're focused on that as opposed to making us feel good because, and I'll use the parent, because I want to be my kid's friend. I want to be the cool mom or dad, right? We're not focused on that because again, that's about me. But no, it's about the kid, making the kid the best possible kid. Then, okay, all of a sudden now we're more inclined to do things. And this is where, you're talking about my first book, where consistency, courage, and caring. So consistency is about being of integrity, okay, which speaks to the third quality, which is model. In other words, we need to model the behaviors we want to see from others. My dad used to say, do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't work. People will follow your example, not your words. But where does integrity come from? Well, that comes from caring about others, right? Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, once said, uh, caring, uh, being cared for deeply by others gives us strength. Caring deeply about others gives us courage.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah,
I like that.
I
Yeah.
didn't, I didn't make it up. Um,
That's a powerful one, though. That's powerful.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
thanks
if
for
you
sharing that. Yeah.
if you think about from the military, and if you read any stories of anyone who's earned any sort of Medal of Valor, Bronze Star, Silver Star, Congressional Medal of Honor, um, any award for valor, and you hear their stories and hear them tell it, they'll tell you two things consistently across the board. And the first is they didn't deserve it because they didn't do anything special. In their minds,
Hmm.
they did nothing that anyone in their unit wouldn't have done had they happened to be standing in that same place. Number two, the reason they did it is because the team depended on them. And if they failed to do it, bad stuff would have happened to their teammates. And in some cases, at the cost of their life. In a Battle of Fallujah, there was a SEAL named Michael Mansour, and he was part of a sniper team. He was on security. So sniper teams, it's not like the TV where you have the sniper all by themselves doing. No, there's a spotter, and then there's a security team because when you're focused downrange, somebody's got to watch your back. And they were up on a rooftop, but there was a blind spot, and the insurgents were able to get around to that blind spot and throw a grenade up onto the roof. Mansour saw that grenade. Now, he happened to be the only member of that team who was close enough to the escape route that he could have dove off the roof. He dove on the grenade.
Yeah.
That's the mindset of thinking about others. And that's where happiness comes from. So when people focus on others, they'll stop taking and start giving.
And you just, I think mentally and physically, you feel better. I honestly think that. Giving and I volunteer with my veteran post. I'm a huge advocate for veterans, especially those with PTSD. So I've been doing that for a long time, and I know that giving of myself is also helping me personally.
Yeah,
It brings that um, happiness, I guess, and also like job well done. You know, and you don't need the accolades or the pats on the back like you had mentioned, and I have interviewed so many veterans over the years. I used to have a monthly column in the local newspaper and for 14 years. So, and I would interview local and area veterans, and many of them, former prisoners of war, or they have, high valor, did all kinds of really tough stuff. And without fail, like you mentioned, they said, well, I didn't deserve that. I, you know, no one needed to give me a medal. I don't need that hanging off my chest. I just did what I was supposed to do. I did what anybody else would have done. I did what my brother or my sister would have did for me. It,
exactly.
and just like you said, I was getting almost teared up when you were saying that because I'm like, I've heard that over and over and over. And it's just that brotherhood, sisterhood that is formed and stays with you for life. And I think the military and tell me what your thoughts did, but at least I know while I was in and coming home, it changes you as a person, how you see things, how you view and think about humanity and right and wrong and how things should be done. And I don't know. It's just really changed how I see everything and how I think. Like my character shifted. Not that I was a bad person or anything, but it just maybe solidified who I was
No,
supposed to
so
be when
I was
I
still
and
USNR. This was 1993. Clinton had just gotten into the White House, and Reagan's 600 ship Navy, which we never hit, all of a sudden was going to be cut in half. And so they said, "Thank you for your time." But I had been there for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Um, and no, my experience is exactly the same as yours. I used to refer to myself as a chameleon. I didn't know who I was, and I consciously didn't know who I was. I was like, I don't know what that, I didn't even know what it meant to know who you were.
yeah, yeah.
I truly didn't. And a couple really impactful things happened in the military. One, I got a real sense of what real poverty is. You travel overseas, and I was in the Philippines, I was in Saudi Arabia, I was in Hong Kong, I was, and you see true poverty, and you realize that in this country, it's a relative poverty. If you actually look at what the top 1% of the wage earners in the world are, many of our quote poor are one percenters by the standards. We really do live in a land, streets paved with gold, so to speak. The second thing I realized is that on the aircraft carrier, the average age on the flight deck is 19.
Mm,
Now, I was there for the beginning of Desert Shield. We were doing 24-hour flight ops. Okay, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if Iran was going to attack us. We didn't know if Iraq was going to try and attack us. We were wartime, and this happened overnight. And these 19-year-old men, and at the time this was men only, these 19-year-old men that I would have called kids until I saw this. And literally, my life and the life of every other aviator was dependent on them doing their jobs 100% correctly, flawlessly. And they executed like they made it look easy. And I would watch them sleeping in these awkward positions in between flight operations to catch a half-hour cat nap so that, they could be as fresh as possible. And they did it without griping, without grumbling, and they did it because it was required of them. And I have a quote on every one of my emails, signatures, whether personal or business. And it's a Churchill quote, and this sums it up. Churchill said once, "Sometimes doing your best is not enough. Sometimes you have to do what's required." That's what I learned.
that's another good one.
Yeah.
Powerful. There's just certain sayings, or quotes that you hear or you read or whatever, and it just hits you and stays with you, and you're just and it kind of it stays in there because it becomes part of your view, you know.
Yeah, you said something else that I also um, experienced myself is coming through that and getting out in 1993 is when I started to form who I am. I started to crystallize what my values are. And it wasn't actually until 2021 that I realized what my highest value was. And I think for anyone listening who says, who am I? Really, I don't know who I am. Start to think about what's really important to you. Because that's what our values are. They're just our beliefs in hierarchical order. That's just the value we place on different beliefs. And I realized in 2021 that my number one value, which I would have said was candor or honesty or something like that prior to this, but this supersedes all else, is personal sovereignty.
Mm,
Understanding that we are each responsible for everything that happens for us, not to us. Nothing ever happens to us. Everything happens for us. And if we understand that it happens for us and find that value in that event, then there's nothing we can't do.
there you go. There you go, folks. Write that down. Awesome. That's awesome. So, what, if any, you're a veteran, you're a public speaker, you an author, you've done all kinds of things. What kind of fears have you faced that have maybe been turned into a stepping stone for the next positive in your life?
Wow. So this is probably going to sound ridiculous after everything we just talked about, but and it's the honest truth. Um, Fear of inadequacy.
That's
Fear,
so common.
yeah. And I've done a lot of work on this and I've done a lot of thought on where does this come from? You know, objectively, and people have will tell me this, have told me this, that look at all these. You flew the F-14, which for those of you who don't know, that was I was Goose in Top Gun, except for I did live, folks, so don't worry. Right? I got 2 deployments, 300 carrier traps, all sorts of other things. I've run 4 companies as president. Okay, bunch of other stuff in between. And yet here I am, I'm feeling like a fraud. Imposter syndrome, you hear it say.
Hmm.
Heard all the people say only imposters don't suffer imposter syndrome, by the way. So if you're feeling that way yourself, I put that out there for you. Um, and the reason is, I believe, is we know our head trash, right? Nobody else sees our head trash. There's a saying, a prophet's not known in his own country. And when I first heard that, what I understood that to mean is like, here in San Diego where I live and I go to the Chamber of Commerce, I go, he's just a member of Chamber of Commerce. We're not going to have him speak. Yet I get paid $10,000 or more, whatever it is, to speak. People love to hear it, but no, they won't. I'm just Dave. I'm in my
Yeah.
own country. But you know what our real own country is? The 6 inches between our ears,
Hmm.
because we know our self-doubts. We kid ourselves sometimes and say, oh, this was an accident. Right. Or like when I came up with my book, and initially I was like, hey, this is some obvious stuff. This is just God. This is so just everybody knows this. And then people read it and they go, my God, I never thought of it that way before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is just like, come on.
I
And
know.
I,
Sit there
I,
like
I,
it's common sense, people. And
right.
actually, it's not for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And we each have that. And this is the really important piece here. This is the real aha for me. It was like, it's not, oh, I'm special. It literally is each and every one of us is special. And that's not hyperbole. That's not feel good, rah, rah. No, most people are playing and no. Certainly, I think there are people who have realized that they are special and they step into that, which is why they financially become more successful. One of the reasons. But we all are special. Each and every one of us have something unique that we bring to the table that nobody else on the planet today or in the history of the world can bring to the table. And once they're gone, nobody else in the future will realize whatever that special thing is. And grasp that is probably the scariest thing for all of us, even for me, right? Is realizing,
I think that's very hard for people to grasp. I know it was for me too. That self-doubt, I always call it the D-man perches on my shoulder and
yeah,
whispers, who do you think you are? You really think you can do this? You think you're going to get up in front of that group of people and speak and they're going to want to listen? You know, those little whispers and you're like, no, no, not today. Flick it off. That I think that it's so well, maybe I don't know. For me, it seems common that a lot of people feel that way. They just maybe don't voice it or don't admit to it. What do you do yourself to overcome that moment? If you have those moments, maybe before you're getting on a stage at a conference, do you have that little niggling self-doubt that comes in? It's like, you're gonna suck. And then you're
yeah,
just like, no, I'm not. I'm going to go out there and do it. What is it that you do to get yourself over those little potholes of fear that crop up in front of you every once in a while?
yeah. So for me, it's not before a performance. I was amateur, but I was an actor as a kid. So getting in front of a group of people that, I used to say long before I became a professional speaker, give me a microphone and a captive audience, I'm a pig in slop. So the fear of performance in front of others was never the issue for me. And even before I spoke professionally my first time, I was never afraid of the platform skills.
Hmm.
The doubt came in my message. Okay. The doubt came in, is my message really that special? You know,
Yeah. Oh,
And
I understand that one. Yeah.
yeah. And I think, and not I think, I know for me, the process more has been going out and doing it, right? So this is the courage piece, right? Going out and doing it because somebody, even if it's just one person is going to get something from it.
Yeah.
And then what happens, and this is really important, we have to look and accept the results because what happens is one of two things. One, and this is what happened with me most of the time, is you get the forms back. Now I use a service called Talkadot, so it's all digital. But back then, you'd hand out, how to speak or do forms, and you get them back, and 90% would be great information, love this one piece, whatever. And then there'd be the one or two where it's like nothing I haven't heard before. It's always like, right. And I wouldn't focus on those. I'm like, look, 9 out of 10 people, or whatever the numbers were, thought this was really meaningful. And they took the time to write something out. So they're not just blowing smoke. And so you look at the past results, and that made the next time. And at some point, I went, huh, well, maybe my message is unique. And then I started talking to other professionals in the industry, like I'm a member of National Speakers Association. I don't know if you are, and um, meet others, and everyone's having the same experience, different but the same, right?
Mhm.
And just like you and I. And you start realizing that this is a common phenomenon. Okay. And I still at that point wasn't 100% of my stuff was like, I'm not Simon Sinek,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And yet I'm like, maybe I'm better than the average bear. And then at some points we keep looking back on those successes and you realize and be grateful for what you have, right? And now blanking the author's name. Dan Sullivan talks about this in 10x is greater than 2x, right? And he talks about the gap and the gain. He talks about, the gap is when you look ahead and at your goals and how far away you are from them.
Mm.
But that's the horizon. And what happens as you approach the horizon? It recedes. And you never make that up. Because as we approach a goal, we start, oh, I'm about to get this goal, and you find the next goal. And so you never celebrate achieving the goal. But the gain is when you look behind you and you realize how far you've come. And that's the secret. Be
Yeah.
grateful for where you are and how far you've come and understand it. And I'm excited, by the way, about the fact that I never achieve my goals. Because then what do you do after you achieve a goal? You got to set a new one anyway.
Right. Yeah. What would you do?
Yeah. So it means I have all this room for growth. And I love growth is exciting to me.
Oh,
It's
me
like,
too. Me too. I was just talking to someone not long ago about that, and I said, and we were both agreeing that we're like, we try and learn something. It doesn't matter what it is or what it's about, something new each day. Whether it has something on your computer or maybe it's, on your smartphone, you learned, oh wow, look at this app, whatever, learning something new each day, whether it's technical or whatever, or maybe it's about yourself, you know?
yeah.
And that's just to me, it's exciting. And I wish that more people, and there's a lot of them out there. I know that there are, but for those who might struggle in that area, what would you say to those folks? Those ones that struggle, they're just like they can't find something that they feel that they would be good at.
So what what excites you? That's the first question. What's in your heart? What Dr. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, says, what's your flame? Okay.
Mm.
And figure out what is it like if you had all the money in the world, okay, you were a billionaire, and you imagine how much money that is, a true billionaire, right? Where you can't spend the interest you earn on a daily basis. You just can't do it.
Right.
Okay. So money is not an object. What is it that would get you excited? And think about being of service when you think of that question. Okay. Don't worry about how much money you can earn doing that. When the grandfather of skateboarding, Tony Hawk. When Tony Hawk started, skateboarding as a profession didn't exist.
Mm.
He did what he was passionate about, which was skateboarding. And now look at him.
Yeah.
Right? Do what you're passionate about, do what excites you, so that every single day you get up eager and excited. That doesn't mean you don't have your days off.
Right.
We need to recharge. But my mission, and this is go back full circle, radical accountability is about creating an environment where everybody is doing just that. So it's not thank God it's Friday. It's thank God it's Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to do what I love to do today. Oh my God.
Yeah. And and that doesn't have to be something big, big either. At the beginning, well, 4 years ago, almost five, I guess. It's beginning of 2020. We all know what the world was going through and how people had lost their jobs. I was one of those people. And I asked myself, because I said, all right, give yourself 24 hours to be angry. And I was, and I did it really well. I was angry really well. And then I thought, okay, after 24 hours, I sat there. I'm like, all right, Kim, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? And what is it that you actually want to do? And I had never took the time to ask myself those questions, let alone think about them. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm at a spot in life right now where I want to think about those questions, and I don't want to send out a resume and go through the stress of all that and interviewing and all of that. I've been there, done that. I'm in a certain season in life. I just don't want to do that again. And so I asked myself that, and I wonder, I think that that would be a good thing for. It doesn't matter where you're at in life and what season you're in. Ask yourself that. I mean, it goes along with what you were saying. What are you passionate about? What do you like to do? What are you passionate about? What excites you? It doesn't have to be some big, big thing that you're like. I also like how you said, it doesn't have to be dollar sign driven either. If service.
If we bring service to the world, so
Oh, think of the how much different the world would be.
well, absolutely that. But if we could take a minute, let's think about what dollars really represent. Okay. Money is nothing more than an IOU for value received.
Mm,
So I purchase a service from you, whatever it is, or it could be a thing, doesn't have to be a service. Okay. That thing that I am buying has a value to me because I can't create it or do the service myself. If I could easily and I enjoy doing it, I wouldn't be buying it from somebody else. I would just do it. Okay. So there's a value to me. That value to me is more than the amount of money I'm turning over to you. Conversely, the value to you, because it's something you enjoy doing, you know how to make easily, right, is worth less than the amount of money you're receiving. That's why you're giving it to me, right? If I'm paying $100 to you, that thing may only be worth $50 to you. That $50 difference, that's your profit. But that $100 I'm spending represents the item I'm getting $150 to me because I don't have to do it. It's going to take me 3 times as long as you to do it, right? So that's what money means. So now, what does this have to do with being of service? If I'm of service to the world by providing something of value that they value, how do they show their appreciation? By giving me money. So money is nothing more than a representation of how much service you are to the world. Be of
interesting.
service, be of service, do what you love. The world will reward you for it.
Indeed. Yes. And sometimes you don't see it coming.
Frequently.
Yeah. Which makes it even more exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah.
has been such an enlightening conversation. It's been really interesting. I love talking to folks that and hearing their viewpoints and how their brains work and why they love what they do. So thank you. I appreciate your time today. This has been fun.
Yeah, this has been fun. I've enjoyed our time together as well, Kim.
So if you could share right now, share with the folks that are listening where they can find you, about you, all the good stuff you're doing, any books, any of that. Where can they find you?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I do have a book, current book. It's Locked On Leadership, the Tactical Business Guide to Creating a Culture of Consistency, Courage, and Caring. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really a how to run any business or any organization or even your family in such a way that you elevate people. But I have a new book. I'm working on called Radical Accountability, released in some probably late 2025. I don't have a firm release date yet. So if you're interested in learning more about that, what I encourage you to do is sign up for my newsletter. Okay, if you go to lockedonleadership.com, LOCKEDON leadership.com/newsletter. Give me your email. Comes out twice a month, and there's useful information on creating radical accountability. However, when you do that, you'll also get to be able to download my white paper. It's a 20-page white paper on radical accountability. I have a leadership self-assessment. So this is no charge there. It's a simple 10-question self-assessment. So see where you are in leadership and where the gaps are and where the gains are, and figure out, where you need to improve or want to improve, right? Because it's up to you. You're sovereign. And you'll have and there's a link to my book if you want to buy my current book. More importantly, when the new book is at a place where I'm ready to start taking pre-orders, you'll be one of the first to know. So it's
Awesome. Awesome.
lockedonleadership.com/newsletter.
And all of that stuff will be in the description and the show notes, folks. So be sure to check all of that out. And I can't even talk. I ask all of my guests as we close out the show to please toss out a nugget of hope to the listeners. So what would your nugget of hope be for the listeners today, Dave?
Sure. And I gave this away a little earlier, but my nugget of hope is this: nothing ever happens to us. It happens for us. I truly believe that everything that happens in our lives happens exactly the way it needs to happen for each and every one of us when it happens that way. And it is our job, and frankly, it is incredibly rewarding and growing to figure out why this happened for us. What's the lesson there? How do we make the most of it? If you take the time to look back in your life and see where you are today and count all the blessings that got you there, every one of those things may have seemed not like a blessing at the time.
Indeed. Good one. Good nugget. I hope everybody out there is catching that nugget he just tossed. Thank you once again, Dave, for being my guest today on Let Fear Bounce. This has been a true blessing. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kim.
And everybody out there listening, this is Kim Lengling, your host. Be sure to tune in each Wednesday, folks. New episodes upload on YouTube and all of the listening platforms. Thank you once again for tuning in this week, folks. I am Kim Lengling, your host of Let Fear Bounce. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Let Fear Bounce. Your time is precious, and I am so grateful that you chose to spend just a small part of it with myself and my guest today. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our weekly nuggets of hope and inspiration. And remember, folks, let fear bounce, because you've got this. So until next time, folks, keep your light shining bright.